created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
Hi, everybody. Today we are wrapping up our first series, at least, of the Parlons series itself. Today we are closing a good number of programs where we shared anecdotes, we talked about the plot, the libretto, the type of voices that are needed, the main arias, and any other thing that was related or that came to my mind in terms of all the operas that were part of this first cycle of the Parlons 2. And for that purpose, today I would like to say that we are somehow celebrating. Today we are celebrating now that these are 60 countries or territories that are now already listening to the program. I really do not have the right words to thank everybody in all the countries that you are sharing these moments of joy, of strong emotions that the composers have created for us. We will never stop thanking Maestro Verdi, Maestro Puccini, Maestro Bellini, Maestro Gounod, Maestro Bizet, Maestro Saint-Saëns, Maestro Mozart, of course, and so and so and so for having given us the chance of sharing this number of programs and sharing and enjoying this immense joy that is opera and at the end unites us all. For the past 3 years, in fact, this project was born in the middle of the latest pandemics that took way too many lives in the world. And right after that, we have not had any good news anywhere in the world. But despite all the horrible things that are happening around the world, we still have a light guiding us, and that light that is guiding us is, of course, music and is, of course, opera. Before I forget, please send us an email to operawillovesinging@gmail.com, operawillovesinging@gmail.com. And to start thanking people once again, let me read the first lot of appreciations to people in the United States, the United Kingdom, Mexico itself, my own country, Canada, France, Germany, Netherlands, India, Spain, Australia, Brazil, Italy, Portugal, Sweden, and Norway. And also, let's take a minute to very briefly mention the number of, or the name of the operas that have been part of this first cycle of the Parlons series. Of course, we had Cavalleria Rusticana, great opera of the Verismo. Who doesn't remember Santuzza? No, no, Torino, rimani ancora, in that tremendous duet. And then we move on to talking about Aida. In fact, Maria Callas in Mexico City, year 1951, which unfortunately had a damaged echo sound. So unfortunately that program was not listened by many of you. Maybe I will correct it or see if I re-record. Of course, re-recording it's difficult because we are referring to one of the most important pages of the past 80 years in the history of opera. That was for Aida. Then we talked about La Forza del Destino and Maestro Di Stefano singing in it, the one of the most beautiful tenor voices, Maestro Di Stefano. We also had Luisa Fernanda, a zarzuela, of course, full of so many lovely numbers. Who doesn't remember the main aria for the baritone there? Ay, mi morena, morena clara, ay, mi morena, que gusto da mirarla toda la vida, mi compañera, toda la vida. And we also talked about L'Elisir d'Amore by Maestro Donizetti. Today coming back to Maestro Donizetti. L'Elisir d'Amore, of course, one of the most outrageous operas ever written. Then we moved to another immense opera, but in this case it is Andrea Lecouvreur. Andrea Lecouvreur, also full of so many beautiful pages, of course, starting with the great opening scene by the soprano. You may recall that acting scene, and then the very beautiful aria Io son l'umile ancella. And then we talked about Don Carlo, one of the most interesting creations by Maestro Giuseppe Verdi. We learned about Princess Eboli. We learned about Don Carlo himself. We learned about Filippo II. And of course, we learned about the soprano Elisabeth de Valois and her splendid aria Tutte le vanità. We also talked still with Maestro Giuseppe Verdi about Otello, or the Cioccolata Project, as it was the coded name for the Otello creation, and that outrageous creation by Maestro Verdi, showing us how much he had advanced in his understanding of composition. And then we moved for the very tremendous masterpiece of the Verismo. Then we talked about Pagliacci, and we learned about how much the character, the main male character, the tenor, suffered in his aria Vesti la Giuba. And we also heard the malefic character singing and being pleased of destroying Neda Ancanio, sorry. And then we made a pause among all the outrageous dramas. Then we talk about Le Pêcheur de Perles by Maestro Bizet, one of the most beautiful operas in French, with great choirs and unforgettable melodies, one of them being the one for the tenor, of course. Je crois entendre encore caché sous les palmiers. And so on, and so on, and so on for that creation. And then we came back to the Verismo with Andrea Chenier by Maestro Giordano, that tremendous opera that portrays one of the greatest roles ever written for a tenor. And then we took a step back and we talked about something much lighter and completely enjoyable. We talked about La Cenerentola by Maestro Rossini, the unforgettable and always loved Maestro Rossini. And then we moved back to the French repertory, talking about Le Conte of Man, and the three heroines, and the main character on the tenor, this proof of strength for a tenor, that is Le Conte of Man, still kept for a second program in the French repertory when we talked about Sanson et Dalila, and we talked about some of the most beautiful arias ever written for a mezzo, the arias for Dalila. Of course, we can refer to Mon cœur suivra ta voix. Mon cœur suivra ta voix, comme sobre les fleurs, au baiser de l'aurore. And she also, Dalila, shared with us her very beautiful aria, Printemps qui commence. Printemps qui commence, ayant d'espérance. And so on, and so on, and so on. And then we went back to Maestro Verdi, this time with the extraordinary opera Macbeth. with one of the most horrible roles, one of the most horrible characters ever written for a singer, the role of Lady Macbeth. Very difficult to sing, very difficult to find a soprano that fits the role. And we talked about Faust by Maestro Gounod, this very splendid opera that also is one of the most interesting roles for a bass, of course, in the role of Mephistopheles, among which, of course, it is Le Vedeur. Le Vedeur est toujours debout, on ne sent sa puissance, on ne sent sa puissance, ta 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 ta. And leaving that lovely character of Faust, we went for the Fledermaus, of course, the Fledermaus, which is another very brilliant piece, not of opera in this case. It is an operetta, still very, very lovable, and a great way to spend around 3 hours listening to splendid music and great characters. And then we moved for Norma, the most desired role for sopranos, the great Norma, of course, the great role for Adalgisa in the same opera, and the very detestable role of Pollione for the tenor. And then we moved for one of the greatest creations of Maestro Puccini. Of course, we're talking about Turandot. Turandot, Turandot, Turandot. And we talked about, in the same opera, about one of the most beautiful roles ever written for a soprano. Again, of course, we're talking about Liu, Signore Ascolta, the great scene where she ends up dying. And we moved for a second opera by Maestro Puccini. We went for Manon Lescaut, another very interesting creation with what we called a very Wagnerian duet between Manon Lescaut herself and her lover. We moved back, even though Manon Lescaut can be considered as part of the Verismo. We moved still to La Gioconda by Maestro Amilcare Ponchielli, that tremendous opera for all the voices there, and the very well-known aria of the Suicidio in English, in that final act where she describes, La Gioconda herself describes that she's ready to die. And then we moved back to Maestro Verdi with Un ballo in maschera. And in Un ballo in maschera we learned about the role of Riccardo, of Amelia, of course the witch, and the role travestito. We went back to the perfection now of Maestro Mozart in Le Nozze di Figaro, and the many, many melodies that he captured and that he gave us. And getting close to the end of this series, we didn't have this time again not an opera, but it was a musical comedy, and we talked about West Side Story, and this still very recent and tremendous, one of the most tragic plots ever written, accompanied by very beautiful music. We shared West Side Story. There is a place for us, somewhere a place for us. And we went for the Donizettian Zarzuela, the second Zarzuela in this cycle. Marina, very interesting a creation that came by Maestro Arrieta, that can be compared to some pieces by Maestro Donizetti. And we finished this cycle. The latest number was Nabucco. Nabucco, that many people know mainly by the Va Pensiero, this singing that reminds us of the many times humans have been unfair and cruel to others. That was Nabucco, the latest number. And today we are celebrating with Don Pasquale. But before we talked about this, the only number of Don Pasquale that we will refer to, I'm going to go back to the list of countries or territories that I would like to thank. And now I would like to thank Japan, the Philippines, Thailand, Turkey. Turkey appears 2 times in the list. Argentina, Malaysia, Hong Kong, people in Russia, the Russian Federation, Spasiba, Nigeria, Morocco, Austria, Indonesia, Slovakia, Singapore, Colombia, South Africa, St. Kitts and Nevis, Denmark, Poland, Ireland, Kenya, Vietnam, Taiwan, United Arab Emirates, Myanmar, Pakistan, Belgium, Hungary, Nepal, Tunisia, Armenia, Kuwait, South Korea, Guam, Lithuania, Reunion, Dominican Republic, Brunei Darussalam, Chile, Zimbabwe, Greece, Croatia, Ukraine, and Peru. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart, and I would also like to share that Katya sent me a message on the celebration of these 60 countries listening, and she also likes to share her appreciation from the bottom of her heart. And now, Don Pasquale, Don Pasquale. I am not going to be sharing the plot of Don Pasquale because I really would like you to watch it. What I can tell you in advance is that it is an opera by Maestro Donizetti that is, then again, so full of many great sticky melodies, lovable characters, a funny plot, and a very good way of spending around 2 hours, 2 hours and a half listening to it. Of course, there are a good number of singers that have recorded it. Unfortunately, as it is also the case for La Fille du Régiment, and as it is also the case of L'Elisir d'Amore, this is not an opera on which you can build a career. Of course, you can be a tenor, soprano, or bass, a baritone, and singing these roles by Maestro Donizetti, but they will not help you build a career as it could be Rigoletto, Trovatore, Traviata, Rodolfo, Mimi, and many others from other operas by other composers. Still, this is a very lovable opera, and we will go to the duet, the splendid, the magnificent duet by Dottor Malatesta, which is a baritone, and Don Pasquale, that is a bass. So I will try to summarize the situation. Don Pasquale has married Norina under a different name, so he doesn't know he didn't marry. Or well, he married Norina under a different name, still he doesn't know. And this woman he married to is in fact the sister of Il Dottor Malatesta, who in turn wanted to marry the nephew of Don Pasquale under the name Ernesto. So, does it sound complicated? Yeah. Remember that this is an opera buffa, and in the opera buffas there are always complicated plots to make things interesting and funny. But Don Pasquale, an old, rich, stingy guy, a guy who didn't like to spend money, has married Norina, and things are not working out for him because she's an outspoken person, she's free, and also she likes to spend lots of money, which is something that he doesn't like, and so he wants to divorce. In that context, the libretto says, Don Pasquale abatutissimo s'inoltra lentamente. So Don Pasquale enters the scene slowly, looking tired. Il Dottor Malatesta asks, Don Pasquale, e Don Pasquale replies, con tristezza solenne. Remember that we are talking about an opera buffa, which means that even though the words or the expressions or what we are seeing on stage can be or sound sad or dramatic, but in fact it is exaggerated because this exaggeration is what makes us laugh. So Don Pasquale, con tristezza solenne, with very solemn sadness, cognato, in mi vedete un morto che cammina. Oh, in me you are seeing a dead man who still walks. Il dottore says, non mi fate languire a questo modo. E Don Pasquale replies, as if he was talking only to himself, pensar che per un misero puntiglio mi son ridotto a questo, 1000 norini avessi dato Ernesto. If I had known that this would have happened to me, I would have allowed Ernesto to marry Norina, but instead, look at how I am now. Il dottore replies, ma spiegherete al fin? But please, explain yourself, Don Pasquale. Mezza l'entrata da un'ora in cuffia e i nastri consumata, ma questo è nulla. Il dottore replies, and then? E poi? Don Pasquale, la signorina vuole uscire a teatro, ma pongo con le buone, non intende ragione, e son derisso. Comando e la mia man mi dà sul viso. How can it happen? Because this little girl, my wife, who wants to go to the theater, of course, to which I oppose, she doesn't listen to me and laughs at my command. I insist and I command and she flaps my head. And Malatesta replies, uno schiaffo, referring to that is a schiaffo. I think you can listen to that. So, uno schiaffo, and Don Pasquale replies, uno schiaffo, sì signore. Il dottor Malatesta says, voi mentite Sofrodoni e Donatale, che non può, che non sa, ne vuol far male, pretesti per cacciarla via di casa, fandonie che inventate, mia sorella capace a voi di perdere il rispetto. So he says, no, you're lying. Sophronia, the false name of her sister, Sophronia Donatale, she is not like that. Che non può, che non sa, ne vuol far male, who can't, who is unable to hurt anybody. You're looking for excuses so that you can throw her out of her house. What horrible things you are making up. Mia sorella capace a voi di perdere il rispetto. My sister would never dare to disrespect you. And Don Pasquale says, la guancia è testimonio, il tutto è detto, ma la testa, il dottore insists, no, it is not true. Don Pasquale insists, è verissimo, ma la testa, il dottore insists, signore, gridar cotanto parmi inconvenienza. Don Pasquale insists, ma se mi fate perder la pazienza, how do you want me not to insist if you're making me lose my nerves? Il dottore, calmandosi, says, parlate adunque. Don Pasquale replies, lo schiaffo, remember schiaffo is pa. Lo schiaffo è nulla, vedi peggio ancora, leggete, and gives him a letter. Of course, Don Pasquale doesn't know that he's been tricked by Il Dottore himself, but that would complicate even more the plot. So he gives the letter to Il Dottore, who reads and says, io son di Sasso, ma come mia sorella si sa già buona e bella? Don Pasquale replies, sarà buona per voi, per me non certo. Because Il Dottore has said, how is it possible? My sister, so wise, so good, and so beautiful. Don Pasquale has replied, he might be a good person for you, but for me, of course, she is not. Il dottore replies che sia colpevole sono ancora incerto, but that it is her fault, it is not certain still. Don Pasquale insiste, io son così sicuro del delitto che v'ho fatto chiamare espressamente qual testimone della mia vendetta. I am so sure of the treason of hers that I called you with the purpose of you witnessing my revenge. Il dottore says, va ben, ma riflettete. And it is because I haven't explained you that in the letter that Don Pasquale has given Il Dottore, it is described the infidelity of his wife Norina. Remember that Norina is the sister of Il Dottore. So, okay, va ben, ma riflettete. Okay, but take a second to reflect. Don Pasquale says, ho tutto preveduto, ma ascoltate, sediamo. I have thought of everything, but listen, let's take a sit. And Malatesta replies, sediam pure, ma parlate. And here is where the musical part or more rhythmic part starts, because all the previous, even though it is accompanied by music and somehow sung, it is very close, pretty much closer to the clamato than actually sung. And now let me remind you that in buffa operas, it is important not only the notes that are written or the tempo, but the intention that the singer can provide to it. So I am expecting that you, wherever in the world are listening to this program, you will try to sing along, or at least to memorize the many words and to accentuate on what you think fits best to imply the intention of our characters. And remember that intention and the way you want to say it, or the way the singers like to say it, is what matters the most. So the first words that you would like to learn is cheti mantinenti. Mantinente. Okay, repeat cheti mantinente. How does it go with music? Cheti mantinente. Cheti mantinente. Remember the intention. Cheti mantinente. Cheti mantinente. Nel giardino discendiamo, nel giardino discendiamo, nel giardino discendiamo. Cheti mantinente, nel giardino discendiamo, prendo me con la mia gente. Il boschetto circondiamo. So let's try to read it. Cheti mantinente, nel giardino discendiamo, prendo me con la mia gente, il boschetto circondiamo. Cheti mantinente, nel giardino discendiamo, prendo me con la mia gente, il boschetto circondiamo. So if you notice, even though it is in Italian, the rhythm of how it is repeated is somehow predictable. Cheti mantinente, nel giardino discendiamo, prendo me con la mia gente. Il boschetto circondiamo, e la coppia sciagurata al mio cenno imprigionata. Senza perdere un momento conduciam dal podestà, senza perdere un momento conduciam dal podestà. E la coppia sciagurata al mio cane imprigionata, senza perdere un momento conduciam dal podestà. Read again. Cheti mantinente, nel giardino discendiamo, prendo me con la mia gente, il boschetto circondiamo e la coppia sciagurata al mio cenno imprigionata, senza perdere un momento conduciamo dal podestà. To which il dottor replies, io direi sentiti un poco, noi due soli andam sul loco, nel boschetto ci appostammo e da tempo ci mostriamo, e tra preghi, tra minacce da avvertir l'autorità, ci facciam da due prometter che la cosa resti là. So that's the whole phrase for il dottore, but let's try to rake it up. Io direi sentiti un poco. Again. Io direi sentiti un poco. If you notice the intonation, of course, they are not the same notes. It is very similar to Cheti mantinente by Maestro Don Pasquale. When you go for il dottore, lo direi sentiti un poco. Noi da soli andiamo sul loco, nel boschetto ci appostiamo. Remember also that there are several repetitions that for the purpose of the composer they make sense because after having said conduciando al pocus dal podestà lo direi sentiti un poco noi nel sole noi nel sole noi nel sole andiamo sul loco nel boschetto ci appostiamo noi sole ci appostiamo e da tempo gliel mostriamo e tra preghi e tra minacce d'avvertir l'autorità e facciamo a due prometter che la cosa resti là e tra preghi tra minacce d'avvertir l'autorità ci facciamo da due prometter che la cosa resti là if you notice that the rhythm is very similar to all the characters. So all the two characters are saying ta 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 ta. Don Pasquale replies, e si fatto scioglimento, poca pena al tradimento. To which Malatesta il dottor replies, riflettete mia sorella, but take second, because she is my sister. Vada fuori di casa mia, I want her out of my house. Altri patti non può far. Il dottore replies, è un affare delicato, volver esser ponderato. Since it is a very delicate situation, I think we need to think it over. So, è un affare delicato, 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 volver esser ponderato, ponderato, ponderato. And even though he says that we have to think it over, reflect on it, Don Pasquale says, ponderate, esaminate, ma mia casa non la vo. Okay, you think it over, you examine whatever you want, but I need her out of my house. En mi casa non la vo, no. Il dottore replies, uno scandalo farete? Are you ready to make a scandal out of it? And Don Pasquale says, non importa. It doesn't matter. E vergogna. Poi ne avrete. Oh, do you want shame to be on you? And Don Pasquale insists, it doesn't matter. Non importa. And Don Pasquale replies, non conviene, non sta bene, altro modo cercherò. So let's look for another way to resolve it. Don Pasquale insists, non sta bene, non conviene, malo schiaffo, qui restò. Okay, it might not be wise, might not be good, but the schiaffo is still here. And Don Pasquale says, okay, so what is it? Il dottore says, I have an idea, l'ho trovata. Don Pasquale, Benedetto, dite presto. Come on, tell me quickly. Il dottore says, nel boschetto quatti quali ci spostiamo, di là tutti udir possiamo, se costante il tradimento, la cacciate su due piedi. We are going to wait for her to arrive to meet her lover. We will be hiding. And when we get her, Don Pasquale says, bravo, va benone, son contento. So now Don Pasquale is so very happy. Son contento, va benone, son contento, bravo. Son contento, I am happy, bravo, I am happy, bravo. So, Don Pasquale continues, aspetta, cara sposina, la mia vendetta già s'avvicina, già ti preme, già t'ha raggiunto, tutto in un punto t'hai da scontar. So now that Don Pasquale sees that he's about to get his revenge to himself, he says, oh, you wait, my dear wife. how my revenge is coming close to you. It's about to get you. Tú ten un punto la hai da scontar. And then there it comes, the very, 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 very fast place. Please try to think of this way. Vedrai se giovino raggiri e cabale, sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lagrime, or voglio prendere la mia rivincita, sei nella trappola, dai vai da restar. Remember that these fast parts, either by Maestro Rossini or as in this case by Donizetti, are like tongue twisters. So going back to the words, vedrai se giovino raggiri e cavalli, sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lagrime. Try to repeat it faster. Vedrai se giovino raggiri e cavalli, sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lagrime. Because he's going to repeat it a good number of times. Vedrai se giovine raggiri e cavalli, sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lagrime. Vedrai se giovine, sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lagrime. E voglio prendere la mia rivincita, or voglio prendere la mia rivincita. Se nel trappola t'ave restar, se nel trappola t'hai da restar. La mia vendetta t'ha raggiunto, tu in un punto t'hai da scontar. Tutto in un punto t'hai da scontar. Tutto in un punto t'hai da scontar. So he repeats three times. Tutto in un punto l'hai da scontar. Tutto in un punto l'hai da scontar. Tutto in un punto l'hai da scontar. Vedrai se giovine in raggio e cavalli, sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lagrime. Or voglio prendere la mia rivincita, se ne trappola t'ave a restar. Or voglio prendere la mia rivincita, se nella trappola t'ave a restar. Tan taran tan 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 taran tan tan taran tan tan taran tan 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 taran tan taran tan 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 taran tan taran tan 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 tan. Già sa vendetta, già sa vicina, già ti preme, già te ragionto, tutto in un punto t'hai da scontar. Tutto in un punto l'hai da scontar. Vedrai si giovani raggiri e cavalli, sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lacrime, vuole prendere la mia rivincita, se ne trappola t'ave da star. But it is also the time for il dottor Malatesta to have a very similar part in the... Of course, he's going to be reading his own words, but it's going to take about the same rhythm. Il poverino sogna vendetta, non sei il meschino, quel che l'aspetta, invano freme, invano arrabbia, e chiuso in gabbia non può scappar. Il poverino sogna vendetta, non sei il meschino, quel che l'aspetta, invano freme, invano arrabbia, e chiuso in gabbia non può scappar, e chiuso in gabbia non può scappar. And he's going to repeat in a fast tongue twister way his own phrases that go like: invano accumula progetti e calcoli, non so che fabbrica castellinaria, non vede il semplice che nella trappola da se medesimo si va a gettar. Invano accumula progetti e calcoli, non so che fabbrica castellinaria, non vede il semplice che nella trappola da se medesimo si va a gettar. Invano accumula progetti e calcoli, non so che fabbrica castellinaria, non vede il semplice che nella trappola da se medesimo si va a gettar. And now try to picture the two of them joining their two different texts, the two different things that they are reading, but at the same time. So while one of them is saying invano accumula progetti e calcoli, the other says vedrai se giovani raggiri e cavalli, invano accumula progetti e calcoli, the other insists cavalli sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lagrime, vedrai se giovani sorrisi teneri, sospiri e lagrime, o voglio prendere la mia rivincita. They would go like that until they go to a final part where the laughs are also written on the score. So they say ha 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 ha. Of course, this is the time. Remember that in opera buffa, the singers can go and invent and come up with something very creative by them, and then they can come up with a very creative laugh, breaking the impost of the voice, and instead of saying ha ha, they can say ha 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 ha. as as funny as they can so that it makes sense to the whole audience. So, ha 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 ha, non può scappar, non può scappar, l'hai da scontar, non può scappar, l'hai da scontar. And after that, l'hai da scontar, after Don Pasquale, the singers usually add a phrase that is not written but that makes lots of sense. So il dottore will say, Don Pasquale, again with the intention that the singer thinks makes sense. And il dottore will say, going back, il dottore will say, Don Pasquale, and Don Pasquale will reply, Dottore, or think again of the intention that you would like to share. So you can say, Dottore, 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 Don Pasquale, Don Pasquale, Don Pasquale, non può scappare. After that phrases of Don Pasquale, Dottore, they will wrap up this tremendously outrageous beautiful duet with the phrase non può scappar by il dottore or l'hai da scontar by Don Pasquale. Of course, they will keep the high note for as long as they can, or as long as they want, or as long as they have agreed to. It is not to spare to say that this part, if not a complete duet because it is very long, but at least the final part of the duet is repeated. And with that immense joy that Don Pasquale has given us, I would like to thank you for following this first cycle of the Parlons. We will continue with another cycle next week, but that is going to be a surprise. Thank you.